Hey guys, it's Tim and this is Pro Wrestling Unlimited as we are here on Friday, March 4th, 2022 with the wrestling wrap up. It's a handful of news brought to you in one easy to watch video. With that, we do have, like I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 news stories, 6 if you count the Revolution, what's the word I'm going to say? The Revolution predictions I'm going to do. I was going to have my predictions out yesterday, but then I got busy with the whole Vince McMahon, Pat McAfee stuff. Then my son and I went and saw The Batman, which is 3 hours long. And then by the time we got home from that, we had to eat dinner and I had to make dinner and this and that. So I said, you know what? I'll do the predictions for live for everybody watching the wrestling wrap up today. I thought that would be really fun for you guys. You guys get to see my predictions on the show. So yeah, we will be doing AEW Revolution predictions because AEW Revolution is this weekend. But we'll be talking about other things like Vince McMahon on the Pat McAfee show. What's going on with Cody and WWE? Do we know anything new on Tony Khan purchasing Ring of Honor and so much more? But with that, I want to say thank you for joining me here. Twitch.tv/PW Unlimited, YouTube.com/Pro Wrestling Unlimited, and Twitter.com/PW Unlimited. Remember, if you are watching live, you can help us out by hitting that donate button down below or donating Twitch bits in the live chat. Also, remember, you can help us out by subscribing to the channel one of two different ways. You can subscribe either with a tiered subscription or you can subscribe with Amazon Prime. Because remember, you don't have the money to pay for a tiered subscription, but you're already paying Amazon Prime for that free shipping or video service. Well, you take that Prime subscription, you take that Twitch account, you link them together, bada bing, bada boom, and you get a bunch of cool free, I guess you can call them free things that you don't have to pay extra for, like free video games. And what's one of those free video games right now? Oh, that's right, Madden 22. Yes, Madden 22. You can also get Surviving Mars, which is a really fun game, and so much more. You get free stuff for games like Grand Theft Auto Online, Destiny 2, Valorant, Red Dead Online, and so much more. Plus, right now, if you're subscribed with Amazon Prime, you can get a cool luchador suit if you play Fall Guys. Play Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout. Well, right now, you can get a cool little luchador costume. Let me see if I can pull this image up. You can get this costume, which is actually really cool if you're subscribed with Amazon Prime. Over there, link your Prime, link Twitch, and you can get this cool little lucha outfit for Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, which is a great game. But the one thing, and there's the intro plays. But the one thing that never changes with your Prime subscription linked to your Twitch, you get one free subscription to any. And hold on, let's ban this guy who's spamming the YouTube chat. I'll put him in timeout for now, if he learns his lesson. Let's see if that worked. No, Rick Zone, not take 3. It was that, like I said earlier, like 3 different things weren't working right. So, yeah. Anyways, you also get one free subscription to any Twitch channel you want to subscribe to, and I greatly appreciate it if you subscribe right here, Pro Wrestling Unlimited. But on the flip side, if you're watching over on YouTube, you can help us out over there with a super chat or a super sticker donation. With that super chat and super sticker donation, you make sure that your question, comment, and concern does get read live on the air. Plus, remember, you can subscribe to the channel by hitting that join button down below and becoming a member, a channel member, a member of the Unlimited Army. As a member, you get early access to news, early access to podcast episodes, early access to non-news videos, and so much more. But if you say, yeah, but YouTube takes a cut of that, I want to support you more directly, then head over to patreon.com/PW Unlimited. And finally, the graphic ain't going to play because the graphic ain't working because my buttons aren't working. Head over to the Epic Game Store. Head over to the Epic Game Store, whether you're buying that brand new game Sifu, that brand new game Elden Ring, Rainbow Six Extraction, or something old like Grand Theft Auto 5. You will be asked, do you have a creator code? And you do, it's PW Unlimited. Again, the code is PW Unlimited. Put that in at checkout, and you will be supporting us here at Pro Wrestling Unlimited. But also, if you're playing Rocket League or you're playing Fortnite on your PlayStation, Xbox, or Nintendo Switch, when you're in the store, the bottom of the store, it's going to ask you have a creator code, and you do. Again, it's PW Unlimited. But with that, we've got a number of things to talk about. And Fonzie, no, I did not get Gran Turismo 7. I wanted to, but I didn't have the money to actually get it yet. So, sorry, I got a email, a work email, not wrestling related, for my other job as a weapons instructor. And so that just popped up on my screen. But no, I did not get Gran Turismo 7. I will get it eventually, but I don't know when. I don't have the funds right now. I got Horizon recently. And then I took my son to the movies yesterday, which I had promised him way a long time ago when he asked if he can go see the Batman live in theater. So I said, sure. And so, yeah, I just don't have the money right now to get Gran Turismo 7. Got a couple other things I got to pay for coming up. So I said, we'll wait. But with that, yesterday, Vince McMahon on the Pat McAfee podcast. And on that podcast, he talked about a number of things. And this was just a straight up, other than Vince saying, I want to offer you a match at WrestleMania. This was a straight up, normal, no nonsense, no gimmick, no storyline interview, which didn't shock me because I heard this is going to be 99%. Before Vince went on the show, I was told this is a 99% real interview, which is cool because Vince don't do real interviews like this, but things got real. And I mean real. And they talked about a lot of things that I wasn't sure they were going to talk about. But the one thing that really interested me over everything is that Pat was just Pat. Just blurting stuff out, jumping around, screaming like he always does on his show. And Vince was enjoying his time. You could, at least it came off as so. Vince was laughing. Vince was joking with Pat. Vince was sitting there, fuck, shit, whatever, like cussing with Pat, as Pat does on his show and all that stuff. So it was just like, wow, this is wild. Because Vince was just being a normal human being on this show. But Vince did show up late. They stated that Vince would be on the show at the top of the third hour. Vince was late. Pat gets a phone call. He's like, yeah. And they're like, about 15 minutes out. Because at first, Pat goes, we're at the top of the hour. Vince McMahon's supposed to be here. I think he's still flying into Indy. Because Vince, I guess, showed up to Indianapolis like last minute when he needed to be there. So finally, Vince walks in. Pat gives him a grandiose little introduction, and they're off to the races with just a bunch of stuff. They just talked and talked and talked like a guy interviewing anybody else. Not, oh, this is my boss. This is Vince McMahon. I got to tiptoe. I got to talk. No. Pat's over here talking about internet rumors with Vince and all kinds of stuff. It's like, wow. And I wanted to hit on some of the things they talked about once the actual interview actually happened. At one point, McAfee brought up WrestleMania 38 and asked Vince if he thought that he'd be doing stuff like this when he was a kid. Vince said, no, I grew up poor. Grew up in a 8-foot double wide trailer. And Pat kept referring to that too. He'd be like, Vince would say like, yeah, I did this. And Pat would be like, yeah, coming from the 8-foot double wide, you would have never thought. But they talked about different things like Vince starting the WWE network. And Pat was like, you were doing subscription services before there was a thing with subscription services. Everyone called you out. Everyone said that that was wrong and not the right thing to do and this and that. And let me ban this mofo from the chat who wants to just keep putting P's in the chat. Hide this creepo. You're gone. But he was like, you know, what made you want to do that? You were apparently, and I didn't know this, they were working on some sort of a deal with Comcast at the time. I guess to get more content over there with Comcast and stuff. And Vince is like, I don't like people telling me what to do and what I can and can't do. So I created my own platform so I could do whatever I wanted. He's like, kind of like you've done here where you could just do and say whatever you want, referring to Pat and his show being on YouTube and whatnot. And I really thought that was telling of, people always try to tell me, oh, there's television restraints and we can't do this on this show, but this is on this kind of network, so we can't do this here. And I wanted a place where I could just do whatever I wanted, that I could just make any kind of content I wanted, because as a creative person, I want to be able to do what I want. And I'm like, you got to respect that. You got to respect that. McAfee asked Vince at one point if he fears it when people talk about how good he is and thank him for things. And Pat literally goes, yeah, I know in Hall of Fame speeches, no one's allowed to thank Vince, but I just want to say right now, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have all of this. Wrestling wouldn't be what it is today. And Vince is like, yeah, I don't want to say I have an ego or anything, but I'm good at what I do, basically is what Vince said. And there was one thing Pat brought up. Let me see if I have it here in my notes. We'll get to it. So he mentions how you have to listen to the negatives to learn what the positives can be. But Vince doesn't like negatives. He said that the media will say what they want to say, and there's nothing you can do about that. People said if people think you're an asshole, you can't change that. I guess I'm just an asshole. Excuse me. He also mentioned how family has always worked for him. Sometimes he holds family to a higher standard than other employees, and he said that he has learned through family working for him, maybe that's not just quite fair as far as what's the word I'm looking for? Holding family to a higher standard than anybody else, which I was kind of shocked by that call where he was like, yeah, maybe he's like, I've always held family to a higher standard than anybody else that works for me, but maybe that's not the right thing to do. And I was like, whoa. Pat also asked about, I guess you could say, competition. He's like, back in the day, we had the NWA, we had WCW, TNA came along, they're not really around anymore, they're now Impact, and we got AEW. We got all this competition. What do you think about competition? And Vince is like, I love competition. Because basically Pat said, I've always read on the internet. He said that a lot of times. I read on the internet. He's like, I've always read on the internet that Vince McMahon thrives when there's competition, when he's got his back up against the wall, per se. And Vince was like, yeah, I thrive on competition. I love competition, even if it gets a little physical. Pat then asked about buying the company, WWF, from his father. Vince said, I bought that company without even having enough money to buy it. Basically, whenever cash would come in, we'd make a payment. Like it was a balloon payment system where you have to put X amount down, and then for the next year, you have to make payments every month with the hopes that you pay it off. Because if not, you lose all the money you paid, and then they get the company. And Vince is like, and then I made that final payment. And they were probably like, this damn kid, he actually did it. Pat also mentioned about WWF, the World Wildlife Fund. And he goes, yeah, I learned about that through you. Not even knowing what that was. Eventually, I didn't know what that was either. The panda got us. He said, the panda got us. Because Vince is like, the panda got you. And Vince is like, yep, the panda got us. And he talked about, how long did it take you to come up with WWE when you had to change from WWF? And Vince was like, well, not long, and entertainment's what we do. And Pat even said, why don't you use the word wrestling? And Vince just goes, because we want to be different. We don't want to be like every other wrestling company that says they're just a wrestling company, because we're not just a wrestling company. He said, when you come here, you become a WWE superstar. And being a superstar sounds a whole heck of a lot better than being just a professional wrestler. Those are Vince's words. Being called a superstar sounds a whole hell of a lot better than just being a professional wrestler. And I'm like, oh, wow. Vince says also, when you graduate from WWE, you learn a lot of things, like how to be a professional wrestler, how to act around certain types of people, and how to respect your opponent in the ring, not to just go out there and go, that's my opponent, I'm going to beat his ass. No, respect him in a way to keep him or her safe. Also, Pat McAfee brought up, he quickly mentioned, Tony Khan over there in AEW bought Ring of Honor. I don't know if you heard about that. And Vince kind of just like, huh? What happened? Heard about what? Like Vince played it like he didn't know. I bet you if someone told Vince, hey, Tony Khan bought Ring of Honor, I bet you Vince knew. But Pat mentioned it briefly, and Vince kind of played it off like, oh, that happened? Like, okay. McAfee brought up that there have been tons of highs and lows over the years and asked if Vince has always been this creative. Vince praised his team around him, saying, you can't do something like this without a team. Vince says that he listens and he thinks that it's important. That's important because you can't learn when you're talking. You learn from listening and watching people's body language. McAfee says everyone listens to Vince. And when he talks, because he's Vince McMahon, you listen. McAfee brought up how Vince doesn't like the attention. Hence, like we mentioned already with the Hall of Fame speeches. Pat then goes, wait, Vince. Don't we have some big, massive breaking news? I think it pertains to the Hall of Fame. And Vince says, yes, I'm announcing right now that I will be the one inducting The Undertaker into the Hall of Fame, which he's only ever done once before for Stone Cold Steve Austin. Then they went on to talk about the relationship and the dynamic of The Undertaker and Vince and how Undertaker never jumped ship. Vince said that Undertaker never even once mentioned to Vince that he was interested in going to WCW. That conversation never once happened, unlike it did with others. If you remember, Vince basically told Brett, hey, I signed you to this 20-year deal. I can't pay you that anymore. But if WCW can, go over there. Vince literally told Brett to leave at one point because Vince couldn't afford the contract that they were about to sign, or it just signed, or whatever it was. McAfee brought up, he talks about the territory days. He goes, on Young Rock, they talk about this all the time, the territories. There's a young Vince McMahon on that show. Have you ever seen him? And Vince is like, what are you talking about? Have I ever seen what? The guy that plays you on Young Rock. Have you ever seen him where you think you're ever going to see him? And Vince's like, have you ever seen him? No. He's like, well, are you going to watch the show and see him? Vince's like, no. Probably never won't. I probably never will. And Pat was like, well, on that show, they talk about the territory days and how, you have to ask permission to use certain wrestlers because they come from this territory. And there's a scene where Vince McMahon, a young Vince McMahon, is calling Hawaii to get different wrestlers and this and that. And Vince's like, yeah, it was kind of like that until I just started invading the different territories and just using guys. McAfee brought up Saudi Arabia and Vince going over there and doing deals and making deals. And Vince goes, hey, the fans in Saudi Arabia are no different than the fans all around the world. WWE is global. WWE has fans everywhere. And those fans are just as passionate and loud as fans anywhere else. I was like, all right, that's a good way to tiptoe around working with the Saudi government. He then asked Vince about his workout regimen. And Vince is like, yeah, I usually like to be done about 3 a.m. And Pat's like, what? What time do you start? Vince's like, well, on a good day, 1:30 a.m. He's like, when do you sleep? Are you ever tired? And Vince is like, rarely. And if I am, no one's ever going to know. I don't show it. Vince is then asked about squatting big weight. And Vince's like, yeah, well, once a month I'll go and squat 1,000 pounds. And I'm like, what? 1,000 pounds? Vince is 76 years old and he's out here squatting 1,000 pounds once a month. He's like, yeah, and then after WrestleMania, I can do more extensive workouts and stuff. But we're in WrestleMania season. We're super busy right now, so my workouts are not as extensive as I would like them to be. But he's like, I like to get out there because it's the only socially acceptable way for me to let out my aggression. Going and lifting some weights. Pat then goes to wrap up the show and he's like, well, had a great time here with you. We've been talking and this and that. The show is brought to you by FanDuel. It's Thursday, and Vince is like, are you wrapping up? We're done? He's like, what would you like to keep going? And Vince is like, sure. He's like, okay, well, my boy's got some questions for you. So they start asking some questions and whatnot. And they keep going. And they pass the 1 hour mark, even though Vince came in 15 minutes later, something like that. And someone said something about being late. And Vince's like, never apologize for being late. If you're late, you're late. But apology is a sign of weakness. Apologizing is a sign of weakness. That then went on to talk about WrestleMania being stupendous. And Vince goes, you know what? I want to offer you something. And Pat goes, me? What? He's like, I want to offer you. I know you love what we do here. I know. Hold on. I didn't put this in my notes, but I have the exact quote on our website, pwunlimited.co. Again, that is pwunlimited.co. Vince stated, quote, I want to offer you something. I know you love what we do, and you're part of the team big time. People in the organization really enjoy you. Fans all around the world really enjoy you being you. Can't find anyone. Can't imagine back in the day Bob Costas standing up on the desk and dancing. You're you, and that's why it works. With that, I'd like to offer you an opportunity to actually wrestle at WrestleMania in the ring. It would be different than when you played with the Colts. You were the punter. Now in the ring, you're the linebacker. And Pat's like, oh, for reals? Like, is this serious? And Vince is like, I don't bullshit. I don't do that. We'll find you a worthy opponent and put you in the ring. And Pat's like, well, you know, there's been a lot of chatter on the internet about me getting in the ring and wrestling at WrestleMania. Had so many conflicted feelings because, well, I'm not really in shape, but got about a month to get into shape. A lot of vitamins. They got to go down these lungs. WrestleMania is the standard, and I would love to. Again, Vince said, we'll find you a worthy opponent. Didn't say who it was. It didn't say that it was him. Didn't say it wasn't him. He just said, we'll find you a worthy opponent. So I don't know what's going on with the whole Vince McMahon, Pat McAfee match that was originally announced or reported by John Pollock of Post Wrestling, but we'll see how that all does go. But these guys kept on talking and talking and talking. And at one point, McAfee praised Vince and said that he should be celebrated more than he actually is. McAfee said that he thinks this mostly because he got the chance to meet Vince. But Vince is the dude who we guys didn't grow up, who, like us, didn't grow up with money, looks. And he looks at that as like, hey, look what he's made without having anything. Well, we can do that too. Like, I know you're a hard worker and your work ethic and all this. And McAfee said that they keep going because his staff has a few questions, and Vince, the first guy goes to ask a question, and Vince kind of interrupts him, and then he finally gets his question off or whatever. And he said, back in the day versus today, business and curating talent, and how hard is it to make sure all the talent is used and creating characters and this and that. And Vince is like, well, it's a team effort. We come up with the characters, but then it's on you. This is the interesting one. He's like, then it's on them to get themselves over. It's on them to make themselves a big name after we come up with the character. He said, like Taker, you could never break him. Vince said, we tried several times. And we've seen different videos and stuff of them, like the Taker Rooney thing and whatnot. He's like, well, Taker, he's professional. Being a WWE superstar sounds a lot. And that's also another time when he said the whole thing about being a WWE superstar is a lot better than just being called a professional wrestler. Another co-host asked Vince about being part of other sports leagues commissions as far as on that big panel of sports commissioners during the pandemic and this and not. And Vince said that was an honor. He said that the NFL is a little more high profile and they did their own thing. But he was determined that WWE wasn't going to miss a show, and they never did miss a show. McAfee then thanked Vince for doing the interview, and Vince pointed to how he's already thanked him several times. Vince then thanked McAfee and said, that's it. You don't have to thank me anymore. Vince said that he's not big on thank yous. McAfee asked another question about perception of Vince and letting talent come up with their own ideas. and if he knows what's happening at the time. He mentioned how people have said over the years how he's not hip or with it, but he's never been cool and has never given a shit about being cool and that kinds of stuff. He then talked about giving talent creative freedom. He's like, if we come up with an idea and you don't like it, pitch me what you got. Tell me what your idea is. Let me know what you think, and then we'll together work on what actually with all these things is the right way to go. And I go, what? Yeah, okay, if they can even get to your ear, they can pitch you. You think people other than like the tippy top Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar's and whatnot are going to Vince going, I don't like this idea. Can we try something different? Maybe like a Seth Rollins or a Kevin Owens. But I don't think you got guys like, perfect example. Jeff Hardy said that he has never once pitched anything straight to Vince. It's always to Michael Hayes, who then went to Vince. McAfee then asked Vince, can you explain Brock Lesnar? And Vince agreed that he's a one of one and an extraordinary person. Vince went on to praise Brock for being very intelligent. He's like, yeah, he may look like a Neanderthal, but he's probably smarter than most people. McAfee brought up how Lesnar appeared on the show and said that Vince is like a father to him. He said that he credited Vince for all of his non-WWE success. McAfee pointed out how Vince's world has come up with some of the biggest stars ever seen, like The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. He then mentioned Bill Goldberg and then goes, well, Goldberg did start in WCW, but he came to WWF and WWE, and his star just continued to rise when he was under you. Which I'm like, yeah, no, not really. I don't think Goldberg is any bigger now than he was not in WWE, to be completely honest. I think Bill Goldberg coming out of WCW was a huge name. And I don't think it's any, in my opinion, and I could be wrong here, but I don't think the Bill Goldberg name is any bigger than it was coming out of WCW just because he went to WWE. And I just don't. As far as a celebrity does go. Because Pat said, he's like, The Rock, most recognizable person in the world, the most famous person in the world. He said, Stone Cold Steve Austin, he can go do whatever the hell he wants whenever he wants. And then he mentions Bill Goldberg, and I go, Also, let me know, guys. It looks like the stream is kind of bugging a little bit. Crap. I was having internet issues the other night as well. Gosh darn it. Hopefully this all fixes it. Let me do something really fast. Here, let's go. Here, let's go. Here, let's change that. Hopefully that fixes it. Because now the stream's getting choppy. Crap. Finally, they wrap. We'll just keep going now. On. Oh, crap. Man, the stream just cut. Give me 1 second. You'll hear me. Yep, and my internet just crapped out. We'll try to keep going. Internet's like, I don't know what. It's going in and out for some reason. I can see my speeds right here. I don't know what's going on. But we'll try to keep going. But they close it out with Pat again, thanking Vince for coming onto the show. Vince thanked him for being there. And again, this is a just great interview. Very, very awesome. But speaking of Vince and WWE, there's a name that's been coming up with WWE recently. That's Cody Rhodes. And people thinking that Cody Rhodes is going to WWE. Well, yesterday there was a report from, I want to say, bodyslam.net, that stated that the talks between WWE and Cody have fizzled out. That's not true. Everything I'm hearing is that's not true. And Dave Meltzer also put in the Wrestling Observer newsletter today that as the last 2 days, Vince was still under the impression that Cody's coming in. So I just wanted to quickly hit on that one. Not much to say other than Bodyslam.net did state that the talks between WWE and Cody Rhodes fizzled out, but from everything I'm able to gather and from other reports as well, that may not be true. So if you're hearing that, just take it with a grain of salt. Also, Andre says, get a new one, buddy. You talk about internet. You can't just get a new internet. I mean, you can go with a different internet provider, but then that means I got to change my cable plan, and that means that I got to go with a less reliable one because, what do I got? Comcast? AT&T ain't more reliable unless I can get fiber and can't get a fiber in an apartment. So, but going forward, WWE has given a little but not much more details for Stand and Deliver coming to us in Dallas. The next NXT, I guess you could say, live Peacock special will be NXT Stand and Deliver from Dallas, Texas on April 2nd at 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. local time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Basically, WWE has stated that the show will be taking place at that time, but will be from the American Airlines Arena, which was originally reported by Mike Johnson of PW Insider. And tickets, here's the kicker, will start at $15. Tickets for NXT, I almost said TakeOver, NXT Stand and Deliver will start at $15, and it will be taking place, WWE has officially noted, it will be taking place from the American Airlines Arena. So they've got SmackDown in the Hall of Fame Friday from the American Airlines Arena. They've got Stand and Deliver the next morning, I guess you could say, from the American Airlines Arena. Then you got WrestleMania from AT&T Stadium. Then you go back to American Airlines Arena Monday for Monday Night Raw. As we move forward, speaking of WrestleMania, we got some interesting info from the Wrestling Observer as far as post-WrestleMania plans for the Brock Lesnar Roman Reigns winner. States that new details have been revealed on what WWE has planned for the WWE and Universal Championship unification, I guess they're calling it unification match at WrestleMania. Dave Meltzer wrote in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that the winner of Reigns versus Lesnar will be crowned the unified WWE champion. But internally, it's already conceded that the single unified champion is only temporary. Quote, it will change from one champion again because it's not plausible, nor for either schedule, not for the networks, not for the long term, a WWE source noted. So, for a little bit, they will be considered, whoever wins this match, which I think is going to be Roman, will be considered the WWE Unified Champion. So cool. And then eventually they're going to, so I would assume if Roman wins, then that's going to stay on SmackDown, and then we get a new belt for Raw, whatever that actually comes. Reading here, one last little thing. Another note is how WWE has a triple threat for the WWE title advertised for post-WrestleMania live events featuring AJ Styles, Bobby Lashley, and Seth Rollins, which is very interesting, which that could maybe be the big Raw program coming out of WrestleMania to crown the new champion. But with that, I do want to tell you that this episode of the Wrestling Wrap-Up is brought to you by the PCD Hive magazine. Issue number 1 of the PCD Hive magazine is now available to purchase digitally. The PCD Hive magazine focuses on mental health, self-love, and features a number of different creators in every single issue, from writers to poets to artists and more. Right now, the PCD Hive magazine is available for only $1, and you can get it in the description below or by going to pcdhive.com. So head over there and get the first edition, the March edition of the PCD Hive magazine. This was a project that I actually worked on from the beginning. I'm part of this team. They brought me in and said, hey, we need someone to design our magazine. We've got all the plans and everything we want. Now we need someone to put it together. That was my job. That's going to be my job going forward as well. Great group of people over there working all together. And I can't stress to you guys how great this magazine not just is right now, because maybe some people may say, it's all right, but it's only going to get better. It's going to get better. The more stuff that they add to this magazine that we do, only going to get better. So again, use the link in the description below or head over to PCDHive.com to get the first issue of the PCD Hive magazine. It's only $1. But with that, I want a quick hit on some things about the AEW Ring of Honor purchase, or the Tony Khan Ring of Honor purchase. Because from what we're hearing is this is a Tony Khan purchase. This is not, hey, Dad, I need some money to start a wrestling company. Oh, I want to buy another wrestling company. This is Tony Khan wholly himself buying the company. Now, we have learned that when Ring of Honor made the announcement of we're changing up what the company actually is, as of December 31st, the company is no longer a normal wrestling company. It's going to be around like an independent. When that happened, they then reached out about potential suitors buying the company. And they did have talks with WWE. Now, we don't know how extensive those talks were, but we do know that those talks did eventually drop off. And that's when Tony Khan swooped in. Now, this is not the first time that WWE has, I guess you could say, what's the word I'm looking for? Inquired on purchasing Ring of Honor. I want to say it was in late 2018 that WWE actually inquired about purchasing Ring of Honor, not just to own the company, but they wanted that tape library. They wanted the Ring of Honor tape library. And you can say anything you want to say about the company. Well, they're not worth this much money, or they're not worth that much money. As a wrestling company, no. But that tape library, very valuable. Very, very, very valuable, because they've got content on some of the biggest names of the last 20 years. CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, SCU, the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes. They got some Kenny Omega stuff. They've got guys from Japan like Shinsuke Nakamura. They've got, all kinds of different wrestlers and content and matches and all. I mean, it's an extensive 20-year library. And that right there alone is worth whatever Tony Khan owns the name Ring of Honor. He owns all the intellectual property. He owns all the rings and ropes and side skirts and everything there. But that video library is what's worth so much. And that was WCW's mistake. WCW, when they sold it to Vince for $2.5 million, undervalued their video library and what their video library means. And that's why they were just like, we need to unload this company. We don't want it no more. Take it. Now, Larry, we don't know if Tony paid $40 million, but according to a report from Fightful, numbers that were floating around were anywhere between 20 and 40 million for Ring of Honor. Between 20 and 40 were different numbers floating around with different offers. So we don't know if that's what Tony paid. Also, I want to say thank you to Jack Dawson for the super sticker donation. Really appreciate that. But WWE did, have talks with Sinclair Broadcasting on purchasing Ring of Honor. Those talks didn't go down, fair. I don't want to say fairly, in the direction of WWE purchasing the company, but they did for Tony Khan. I don't know, and this has been a rumor since Tony announced this. I don't know if Tony paid more than WWE was willing. Now I'm spitballing things and assuming, say they told WWE, we'll sell you Ring of Honor for $30 million, and they said, a little high, no. And Tony came in and said, I'll give you 40. Just saying. Those are fictitious numbers. We don't know. That's just a thing that I've heard, that Vince McMahon, or not Vince, but WWE said, nope, we're not going to pay that. And Tony may have swooped in and paid that or more. So Tony may have actually been willing to pay more than WWE was for the company. Also, Hook says, will TNT get Ring of Honor? Probably not. And that's the other big question. We don't know how Tony Khan is going to run this. Is Tony Khan, for all we know, Supercard of Honor may get canceled. For all we know. Because that was a show put together by the old regime before they were sold to Tony Khan. Now that they're owned by Tony Khan has no, I guess you could say, what's the word I'm looking for? He doesn't have to do Supercard of Honor if he doesn't want to, because he didn't tell all those wrestlers booked for the show that this is what we're doing. The old regime did. So I just wanted to bring that up, a little bit of an extra news tidbit note deal there as far as Tony Khan purchasing Ring of Honor, WWE having talks with Sinclair Broadcasting as well. And we still don't know how this company is going to be run. Are they going to be their own thing? Is ROH just ROH? Is ROH now a second brand, a developmental brand to AEW? Or will everything ROH just get absorbed into AEW and the ROH lineage is just there but gone? So, yeah. Hunter Iggy, we already talked about that. But speaking of AEW, we got a pay-per-view this weekend. AEW Revolution. AEW Revolution comes to us this Sunday from Orlando, Florida. And I thought I would give you my predictions for the show that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 matches announced. Is that right? Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. 10 matches announced. 8 for the main card. That doesn't seem right. I thought there was... Hold on. I might be missing one here on my notes. I thought it was 9 for the main card. I could be wrong. Yeah, what am I missing here on my notes then? Give me 1 second, guys. I'm missing a match on my notes. What am I missing? I got it. Boom. 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 Yes. Yo. Tag team. Jericho. Oh, that's what I'm missing in my notes. Jericho versus Kingston. All right. Now we're good to go. So this coming Sunday is the AEW Revolution pay-per-view. And there are 2 matches that have been announced for the buy-in. First off, it is Hook against QT Marshall. And I think this one's a no-brainer. It's Hook. I was going to say QT Marshall. I tricked you there. I said Hook. It was Hook. As far as the other match on the buy-in, it is Layla Hirsch versus Chris Statlander. That one's a little harder to predict because they've been going back and forth with this feud, and it's kind of like a Rampage-only feud, and I don't watch Rampage every week. But I'm going to say, Layla Hirsch. Moving forward, Chris Jericho will be going one-on-one with Eddie Kingston, and I think you got to go Kingston. I think Eddie Kingston needs to pick up this victory over Chris Jericho just to establish him a little more in AEW. Also, we do know that Bryan Danielson will be going one-on-one with Jon Moxley. And to be honest, this may be the hardest match for me to predict. Danielson, Moxley. I don't know who would win this one. But if I have to make a prediction, I say Moxley. Moxley's been gone for a while. Give him that big win over Danielson and then go from there. But I'm going to say Moxley. Moving forward, we have the dog collar match. CM Punk versus MJF. Another tough one. I'm going to go out on a limb and say MJF beats him. I'm going to go out on a limb and say MJF defeats CM Punk. Sorry, I was looking at 2 different things. I'm going to say MJF beats CM Punk. In a Tornado Trios match, we have Sting, Sammy Guevara, and Darby Allin against the AHFO. Matt Hardy, Andrade El Idolo, and Isaiah Cassidy. Give us one to the baby faces. Sting, Sammy, and Darby. At the Face of the Revolution ladder match, it is Keith Lee, Wardlow, Powerhouse Hobbs, Ricky Starks, Orange Cassidy, and the winner of tonight's match between Christian Cage and Ethan Page. I think Ethan Page makes it into the match. He was in this match last year as well. But coming out of this match, who wins? I'm going to say Keith Lee. I'm going to say they strap that rocket to Keith Lee. First of 4 championship matches with the TBS Championship on the line. Jade Cargill defends against Ty Conti. This one's another no-brainer. It's Jade. Jade keeping that belt. In a triple threat match for the AEW World Tag Team Championships, it's Jurassic Express defending against the Young Bucks and Red Dragon. Now, here's my worry with this match. I hope that this match and the whole whatever's going on between Red Dragon and the Young Bucks doesn't overshadow the fact that this is a title match and the Jurassic Express are the champions. But with that in mind, and the dynamic and the whatever between Red Dragon and Young Bucks, I think that is going to actually cost both teams. Jurassic Express retains. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Jurassic Express retains. Moving forward with the AEW Women's Championship on the line, Dr. Britt Baker will be defending against Thunder Rosa. Now, there is a rumor right now going around that Thunder Rosa may be injured, but will not miss this match. I know Dave Meltzer put in the Observer that she was injured, but then Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful did state that he reached out, and it was denied to him that she's hurt, but it could be denied and she is still hurt. They could be playing him. She could be hurt and just not wanting people to know she's hurt because she's going to do the match anyway. So we'll see how that one goes. But I got my money on Thunder Rosa. I think Thunder Rosa should walk out of Revolution the AEW Women's World Champion. And finally, with the AEW World Championship on the line, Hangman Page will be defending against Adam Cole. Now, as a fan, as Adam Cole being one of my favorite wrestlers, I would say Adam Cole, but that's not my prediction. Don't get it twisted. My prediction is Hangman Page. For one simple reason, we go back to the dog collar match. MJF wins the dog collar match. He rides that momentum to Double or Nothing. A match against Hangman Page for the AEW World title where MJF wins the belt. That's what I think happens. Hangman retains, and MJF beats the Hangman at Double or Nothing for the title. Could be wrong, but that's my prediction. Hangman retains, and then moves on with MJF at Double or Nothing in May. But with that, those are my predictions for the upcoming AEW Revolution pay-per-view this coming Sunday, live on pay-per-view from Orlando, Florida. If we do hear anything else regarding Revolution, well, we'll have it for you right here. Because, we still got Rampage. But I doubt anything other than who's the final entrant in the ladder match. I doubt anything new gets announced for the pay-per-view. But speaking of tonight's Rampage, we do have that show on tap. We will be reviewing both Rampage and SmackDown tonight. I did promise. Any live Rampage I will review. And first off, we do know that Keith Lee will be in action. Serena Deeb will host another edition of the Professor's 5-Minute Rookie Challenge. Ethan Page will take on Christian Cage for the final spot in the Face of the Revolution ladder match. And the TNT Championship will be on the line when Sammy Guevara defends against both Darby Allin and Andrade El Idolo. Excuse me. As far as tonight's SmackDown does go, Ronda Rousey will be in her very first ever match on the SmackDown brand when she takes on Sonya Deville. The SmackDown Tag Team Championships will be on the line when the Usos defend against the Viking Raiders. And the Intercontinental Championship will be on the line when Sami Zayn defends against Ricochet. So with that, guys, that's going to wrap up the wrap-up. Talked a lot about Vince on the Pat McAfee show, the AEW acquisition the Tony Khan acquisition of Ring of Honor. We got Revolution this weekend and so much more. So if you are watching live, I want to say thank you, and I'll see you this evening for SmackDown and AEW Rampage. So have a great night, have a great day, have a great whatever it is, wherever you're watching. I'll see you guys next time.